Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club celebration of service this afternoon. Thank you for getting out in the cold. It's only going to get colder. Yay. Sarcasm there. My name is Lawrence Snyder, president of this wonderful club, and appreciate you all being here. Thank you for Winston greeting us, and thank you, Valon, for capturing the last meeting of January for us on the roundabout side of things. I will invite Ms. Sarah Laughlin up for the pledge and reflection. Sarah? Did I catch you off guard? Was it a surprise?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So nice to see Alan standing and saying the pledge after just becoming a citizen of the United States. Big grin on his face. So I don't see Martha Wales here, and I didn't expect to see her here because she fell and broke her knee a few weeks ago, and she's coming back, but she's more or less housebound until she can, pass the inspection and get back on her feet. But many of you have probably gotten a letter from Martha, a note from Martha when you were sick or had a knee replacement or something. How many of you have received a card of some sort from Martha? Okay, or our fellowship committee. Well, when I was president, and it's the job of the president to appoint the committee chairs, and Martha was on the fellowship committee, and I asked her if she'd be willing to stay and do that very important task, and she graciously accepted. And sometimes I pass news on to her, as I'm sure Lauren does, because people will tell you that so-and-so's in the hospital, or so-and-so had their knee replaced or something, and that we want to make sure they get a card from the club. But it's a different thing altogether when you get one yourself. And I know, I had gone along for several years with the fortunate situation of never having to get one, and then all of a sudden I needed one. And the card came, and not just one, but several cards came from Martha while my husband was ill. And I really understood, I think, at a deeper level, that the purpose of Rotary, the original purpose of Rotary, is fellowship. And sometimes it's just a lunch at the Union, but other times it feels like a much deeper connection. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit today, just that idea of fellowship. So last April, I got another one. This one's not on the Rotary cards that we have, right? This is a letter, and this one came probably from Pam. But this is a list of all the people who donated to the memorial fund for a deceased member or spouse. And again, I don't know how many people know about this because I had sort of forgotten about it from the time I checked the box when I became a member to the time I actually received this letter. But when you sign up as a member, there's a choice to do a $20 donation for a member or a $10 donation for a spouse. And what happens with that money, doesn't happen very often, fortunately, maybe 2 or 3 times a year if we're lucky, that it's added to your quarterly bill, and then a donation is made to the Rotary Foundation, the Bloomington Rotary Foundation, in memory of or on behalf of those whoever that was who passed away. So I cherish this letter. I keep it still handy where I can look at it from time to time, and it reminds me of the fellowship of this club, which, as you know, was very important to me during that time and still is. So if you haven't signed up for that, I would encourage you to ask Pam about it and check that little box on your membership form and know that when somebody needs you, you'll be there.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And certainly a weekly lunch is important. A service project is important. But as I always emphasize, this club is all about relationships and ultimately friendships. And I think that reiterates that point very well. So thank you, Sarah. Now, Michael, introduce our guest that we have with us today. Michael.
All right. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. And speaking of guests, could you stand when I call your name so we can recognize you? Jeff Cockerell is guest of Jeff McKim, and Jeff's a county attorney. And president of Sunrise Club. Cool. Danielle Green is a guest of Jim Bright, and she's from Our Little Bit of Heaven Rescue. And finally, we have Amanda Barge, guest of Liz Irwin, and she is from the Monroe County Board of Commissioners. Thanks for coming, and we appreciate it. And if you have any questions about Rotary, just ask anybody at your table.
Thank you, Michael. And Jeff, if you have any questions about Rotary, just let us know, okay? Good to see you, Jeff. Our Rotary family birthdays this week, we had Leslie Green on the 27th, so happy birthday to Leslie if you see. There she is. I didn't see you come in. Happy birthday, Leslie. And then Judy DeMuth is tomorrow, Judy. Happy birthday to you, too. Membership anniversaries, we have none this week. And quick pre-program announcements here. Our district engagement grant, and reminding you, and I will perpetually remind you until the date passes, April 27th is our district conference in Clarksville, Indiana, under District Governor Sue Wright. Our resource fair called It Takes a Village for children, infants, toddlers, and maternal fair. That is May 18th at the warehouse, and planning is on its way and going very well to date. Our lunch buddies, still available for the third quarter. Natalie, I believe, has the list back there, and it has been emailed to you. Let us know. And our next Rotary 505 will be January 31st. So, Joy, where's that going to be? At Nick's, is that right?
Yes. This Thursday, 5:05 p.m. upstairs at Nick's.
What if they come early?
Great.
So 5:04 is okay.
5:04 is okay.
All right, we're giving you a buffer to get from work at 5 to Nick's in 5 minutes, okay? All right, look forward to seeing everybody out there. Now, Miss Susie, where's Miss Susie? Miss Susie, happy dollars. Do you have one yourself?
I'm going to start off today. So my son, who graduated from IU, just to be a degree and kind of languished for a little while before moving to Chicago in August, getting a job, reported that he got his very first raise. And so I'm super happy today, so I'm giving $5. I get to go watch my son Max tonight. He's a former swimmer at North and then IU, and now he's a coach for the North swim team. So I get to watch him tonight for his very first time as a coach. So I'm excited about that. It's also a big day for him. He is buying his very first house today here in just a couple of hours. So big day for Max.
Yeah. Any others? I've got some happy money, and this is very happy dollar. This is $20 because Morgan and I are leaving tonight to go to a much warmer climate. We've had this trip planned for a while, and it just worked out really well. But the $20 is also Coleman will get to spend the time we're away until Sunday with his grandparents down in Louisville. So we're nervous/excited for that first going away for Mr. Coleman. So warmer weather and Coleman getting some time with his grandparents. So, all right, any others? Yeah.
I'm just happy that I'm on my feet and not slipping and sliding around someplace like down some stairs.
Yeah, we're happy about that too. David?
I am happy also to be going out of town, not just to enjoy California weather starting tomorrow for a little while, but actually I get to see my daughter and my 2-year-old grandson, which I just don't see very often.
Great. Yeah, one in the back, Liz. Susie, you're getting a workout today.
Happy that my grandson's got a college scholarship offer for basketball.
Oh.
I am very happy that Beth and I sat next to each other today and were able to schedule a lunch so that we can catch up, talk about fellowship. We did it.
Are you quarterly lunch buddies?
We're not even lunch buddies.
Okay, all right.
But we're going to have lunch.
Good.
Because, friendship.
All right. Anybody else? All right, Susie, thank you very much. All right, now I want to invite Mr. Michael Sherman up again to introduce our speaker. Michael.
All right, so first the formal, and then I'll get to the informal. Erin Predmore is the president and CEO of the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Prior to her current position, she worked in nonprofit management, leading 2 different social service agencies, Monroe County United Ministries and Family Service Center. Erin is a licensed therapist and has worked with children, adolescents, and families in crisis for many years, experiences that have prepared her well for her management and supervision duties. Erin is a graduate of both the University of Virginia and the University of Georgia and is a certified fundraising professional. She and her husband are originally from South Carolina and enjoy the fact that they can visit both the mountains and the beach when they go home to see their family. Their 3 children are busy with their kid things, and so Erin has no current hobbies other than driving them around Bloomington. So I've known Erin for about 3 or 4 years probably when she started at Macomb, and I was working with an organization called the Nonprofit Alliance. And so Erin would come that frequently hosting it at Macomb for us, and I always enjoyed the opportunity to work with her because she was direct, sincere, creative, and honest and forthright, and it was always refreshing. And when I heard that she got the offered the presidency for the Chamber of Commerce, I was really excited because I thought this is somebody who's going to be able to listen and offer a refreshing point of view. And if anybody's reading the articles that get produced in the BizNet, I hope you'll think the same thing. So really happy to welcome Erin to come speak to us.
Thank you all very much for having me here today. I'm going to put my phone up here so I can make sure I honor y'all's lunch hour here with us. I'm going to talk a little bit, my topic today is a little bit of an introduction so that you can know who I am and what we're doing over at the Chamber. And then I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end to make sure that we have an opportunity for a conversation as well. The Chamber literally started, well, here locally it's more than 100 years old, but traditionally the chamber idea came from, it was literally like the room above the place people had beer, where the business people would hang out. And typically those were businessmen, right? So we have a long, long history, not just in our society, but in societies the world over, where the business people would get together to try to talk about what was going on in their community, but also try to work together to make more money, essentially is where this all started. Where we are now, it's always been the voice of business. To give you a brief history for me with the Chamber, the very first time I really knew very much about the Chamber was through my husband's grandfather, who served as his president of his chamber in Durham, North Carolina, when he was a businessman. He owned a men's clothier shop there right downtown in Durham, and his name's Joffrey, and he passed away not too long ago. But Joffrey was one of those men who always just brought joy to you whenever you interacted with him, because he was so happy to see you and also to find out what you wanted him to do for you. He was a kind of a servant leader in that way. And so when I think of myself when I thought about joining the Chamber at the very beginning of this journey that I've been on in the last 8 months, I thought a lot about Joffrey and who he was as a businessman, how much he gave to his community, and the impact he made through his business. He not only sold men's clothes, but he would give away men's clothes. If there was a man that needed a suit or to look nice for an interview, people knew that you could go to Joffrey's store and talk to him, and Joffrey would let you have that outfit that you needed so that you could get that job. So then fast forward to now, and I'm now leading the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Business is really changing. It's very different than it was when Joffrey first started way back in Durham and started his business back then. And it certainly is very different than when business people used to meet above the bar in the chamber to talk about business locally. So the chamber is also changing. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today, is kind of who I am and my vision for the future of business in Bloomington, but also how that intersects with the other parts of our community. We have several things going on at the Chamber that have been going on for a while, but I'm not sure we've always done a great job of letting everyone know about those things. The first one would be advocacy. There are many issues that come up in our community that we, as the Chamber, take positions on. And to let you know a little bit about how that process works, we have a Chamber Advocacy Council that meets weekly, bi-weekly, talks about issues going on in the community, and then helps us to determine if and when we should take a position. So they make a recommendation to our board, then the board reviews it, and they talk about it as well, and then they vote and determine whether or not it's time to take a position. One of the things that come up is our legislative agenda. So the legislature is in session right now. And so we have I'm like showing it to you here, you see my hands? We have a legislative agenda that you can find on our website actually, but that has gone through all that process. So we start with our advocacy council, our legislative council meets as well. Some of the members of our legislative council are here with us today. And they help us determine the positions we need to take, the board votes on them, and then we publish those. And then those are my marching orders when it comes to advocacy. Ann Bono is our director of advocacy, and she works tirelessly every day on these issues. And then she and I together try to figure out how best to move our community forward and make sure that we're being the voice of business. We've got Representative Hollingsworth is going to be coming on President's Day. We just found that out last week. So you might have, if you're on our mailing list, you got an email out today that said, if you want to come and hear Representative Hollingsworth, then he'll be here and register for the lunch, submit your questions in advance. But that's an example of those kind of things that we do with advocacy to make sure that business issues are coming to the forefront. For this year, some issues that we're going over that we're talking about, things about school funding, which are very important to our community. We've taken a position on hate crimes legislation as well. We're in the middle of writing a letter and working with others in the community to have other signatories to that letter as well to send that up to Indianapolis. So those advocacy issues will always continue. I would say when it comes to my job, that's probably about 50% of what I do, is working on advocacy, both locally with the city and county, and then also statewide. Federal stuff doesn't always happen as much, but we're always looking for ways to sign on to things that are going on and also to be in communication with those representatives that we have up in Congress as well. The other things that we have, I'd say about 25% of what I do is about education and workforce development. So we have a staff member, Christopher MG, whose job it is to help work with our local schools and also with our young professionals to make sure that they are ready, that we are helping as a business community to get them ready for successful work. So as we're celebrating someone's first raise who's in Chicago, which I know as a parent would make you, as I heard that my kids are a little younger, but I was sitting there thinking, oh, I bet that's a wonderful day. So as parents, what you want for your kids is that they have a job and they are able to have a successful life. We usually say we want them to be happy, right? If we define happiness as adults, then it's things like we're able to take care of our people and we're not too stressed. Does that sound like about right? So that means generally that we are able to have a job that can pay us enough to be successful and do those things that we need to do. So as the chamber, we find that we can harness the connections that we have. We have about close to 900 members at the Chamber of Commerce, and that represents over 30,000 employees in our community. So when we think about that, when we send out an email and say, hey, we need some engineers to go and talk to some kids at this high school about what it's like to be an engineer, we've got some engineers that will reply. Whether it's a financial analyst or somebody who's interested in education, but maybe in a different field than what the child's been exposed to before, somebody who works outside, somebody who does construction. We have lots of connections that way. And so Christopher works very hard to pull those links together and make sure that those individuals in the community connect with those kids in the school as much as we can. We do the reality stores. We talk about, we're trying to work on something for the fall around financial literacy in the elementary schools so that our kids have opportunities to learn about that before they graduate from high school. We're going to try to kind of ramp that up as they get older. And then we want them to have a lot of career exploration. So things like job shadowing, mock interviews, those soft skills that children and adults need to be successful in the world. How many of y'all have had instances where you have met an adult and you've just been stunned at their inability to be appropriate or handle a situation in the right way, right? So those are called soft skills. And so I know that Michael mentioned that I'm a therapist. And one of the things that is, and it's not a joke that I use my therapy skills all the time. These are things that always come back up whenever I'm doing things. But this idea of soft skills, like you have a kid who's 2 and they're throwing a tantrum. What do we say? We say, all right, buddy, I know you're upset. Let's talk about how you can solve this problem. You comfort them. You help them figure out that, yes, their toy broke, but you can help them put it back together maybe. You help solve it. Well, fast forward 20 years, and you've got a 22-year-old that's throwing a tantrum. And what happens to that 22-year-old? Like, you call the police, right? You don't sit there and go, it's okay, buddy, and I'm sorry that you're upset that you, whatever at work, but, adults can't do that. And so what we're hearing from employers is that not that they're having to call police about their employees, I'm not implying that, but they are saying that the young adults that come to work are not always capable of handling the things that they need to be able to handle to be successful at work. So we have young adults who, maybe have a flat tire and they just don't do anything. They don't call, they don't do it, they just don't show up to work. And when you dig a little deeper, they find out that the young adult just didn't know how to have a tough conversation with their boss and say, sorry, I had a flat tire today, I'm trying to get it fixed, here are the ways I'm going to solve this problem, I will be there late, but I will be there. So they're not doing those types of things. And so what we're finding at the Chamber is there's space for that kind of both exposure to the job world so they can do a little bit better, but also how can we help them build those skills along the way. So we're going to be hoping to develop some ways to fill in those gaps for kids so that when they graduate, no matter where they're going, whatever their career pathway is, if it is directly into a job, directly into maybe community college or into a 4-year university, that all of those ways that they'll be able to be successful. How many of y'all teach or have taught here at IU? Yeah, I thought so. How many of y'all have kids in your classes that don't know how to handle bad news or I have other people who are not professors now raising their hand, but they're college age, right? And they even those older kids who have not maybe gotten a C on something or are frustrated that they're not allowed to do what they thought they were going to do. So y'all are also seeing it. And what we're realizing at the Chamber is that if we can find ways to support those kids as they develop, then we're going to be able to do that as well. So that's part of that education and workforce development that Christopher works on. And then after the kids graduate and they become young adults, then we have our Young Professionals Bloomington opportunity for them to engage in that way. And that allows them further workforce development and professional development. So this is a group for 25 to 40-year-olds to be able to connect them to Bloomington. So many of our young professionals move here for a job, or maybe they are a partner to somebody who's moved here and they're looking for an opportunity to get connected. And so YPB, we've just rebranded this month. It used to be HYPE, so y'all may be familiar with that. But YPB is the opportunity for them to do professional development, engage in our civic life here, so they do things like meet with our city council members or tour some of the local parks, visit the fire station, those sort of things. And then about a third of the activities are fun, so they do things like go to a barbecue or have a drink at 507 at Nick's. So as y'all described that, I thought, oh, I know some people that'll probably meet you there. But those types of things. So when you think about, again, going back to what it means to be happy, you're okay. You're able to take care of your people, right? And you're not too stressed. When I think about how the Chamber puts together the ways what we want for our community, is we want that opportunity for all of our residents. We feel like we have a tagline at the Chamber called Better Business, Better Community. And what that means is that as business is doing well, that means the rest of the community can do well too. That means we have enough jobs for everybody, that we're growing in a smart and efficient way that's good and it's helpful, that our wages are not too low, and that we have enough housing, that we have enough transportation options and those sort of things. So workforce development, young professional development fits into that, because as individuals come into our community, we want them to be connected. And as they grow up in our community, we want them to know how to be successful as adults. The other parts of what we're doing right now at the Chamber, we've added a few things in our member services. And like I said, we have about 900 members. A lot of the things that we do for members, y'all may be familiar with. We do a lot of networking. We have over 50 events every year that people can come to. I do have somebody on staff that organizes those for us, thank goodness. She's very, very talented in that. But we're building some other things out that will help other members who maybe networking isn't there, why they're a member of the chamber. We need them to also have opportunities for themselves for professional development, and ways for them to have cost savings and be able to offer benefits possibly to their employees. So we're about to roll out in the next month an opportunity for members of the chamber to provide insurance for their, not medical insurance, I'm working on that one, but other types of insurance to their employees through their chamber membership. So we're working on dental, vision, short-term disability, long-term disability, and life insurance. And so those are things, if you have a small business, it's a lot of times you're too small to be somebody that, those types of insurance providers would want to help and be able to have as a client. So what we found is that if we represent 30,000 people, we have a little bit of weight. So we're going to throw that around a little bit and see if we can have a broad umbrella so that all of our small businesses can be part of that. The medical insurance part, it's difficult right now to solve that problem. If anyone has insight into how to do that, let me know, because that will be that's a big piece of the pie that I think if we could solve for our community would be pretty impressive. And then the other couple of things that are going on that I'm working on right now is just talking to my table about some of the issues. We have affinity groups that we're starting up, and those are just kind of like get together for coffee, talk about the things that you're connected with. So we have arts and business is about to start. We're about to start women in business. Business is the repetitive word here, but we're trying to find ways where there are already intersections of interest across different industries and different sectors where we can be creative and connect and probably have some innovations and support both that come from those relationships. One of the things I was telling my table about is I was just reading, my son is sick. I've been home for the last couple of days with him, reading lots of things. Today's reading was a report from the Institute for Working Families, and it's through here in Indiana, and they just did a report about the gender wage gap. And so I've been reading about that and how that impacts all workers all over the state and different recommendations about policy. So that's an example of something that I would end up spending a lot of time on, and it doesn't mean that at this moment we have anything we're doing. We're going to offer that as education for our members as a kind of policy and best practice sort of thing for them, but we don't necessarily have a position because legally you're not supposed to discriminate based on gender. But there are some, say, implicit biases that we have that are facilitating some ongoing sort of things. So we're going to be hopefully giving out that information to our members as well, again, so that they can have stronger businesses and we can have a stronger community. We have sustainability issues as well that we kind of keep on top of. How many of y'all were aware of the parking debate that went on through the city? Jeff McKim's arm's really high in there, right? So, Jim's back there. That's right. Jim, would you like to come talk to us about parking? So sustainability issues as they approach and they come across for the chamber, the reason I'm bringing up parking is that the chamber took a position that we were supportive of the parking garages, both in the Trades District and replacing the 4th Street garage. We did not, the Trades District was approved, the 4th Street garage was not approved. And in some of that discussion, a lot of the debate within the community and there at city council meetings was around sustainability issues. And when I got up to talk, one of the times I got up to, I did it for a few weeks in a row, but one of the times was, as the chamber, we believe that there can be both and solutions around sustainability, that it doesn't have to be that cars are bad or commerce is bad or business growth is bad. It's that we can grow in smart ways that are sustainable, where we're able to help people both have jobs and get to the place they need to get to. One of the things that I'm concerned about are all the employees we have that live outside of Bloomington that drive in. We need them to be able to put their cars somewhere. We have individuals that come from not just outside of Bloomington and live in Monroe County, but we have about 15 to 20,000 people that come in from the surrounding counties. Again, where are they going to park? Without those people, we do not have enough people locally to keep our economy going in the same way that it's going. So we have to find ways to open our doors and our parking spaces, I guess, to those individuals as they come in. So for me, sustainability remains a really critical piece of what we're doing at the chamber, only because I want us to make sure that as we take positions like parking, the debate there was, should we have a place for more cars, because cars are causing and impacting climate change, is that looking for both and solutions where we can navigate those issues in smart ways. One of the things, as we work through things like gender wage gap or sustainability issues, one of the things that people ask me, or did ask especially when I first started, they were surprised that I took the position at the chamber. I am a therapist by training. I do have a license. I'm licensed in many states. And this is a different thing for me to do. They saw it that way. And they came and some friends were concerned. Karen, are you okay? I heard you took the job at the chamber. And I said, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. And they were like, well, this is just crazy. Is the chamber different or are you different? Which is something's changed because these were not things I would have put together. And what I reassured them was that I had not changed, that I am the same person I was a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I cared very deeply for individuals and people in our community, regardless of whatever community I've been part of. I've spent a long time worried about children. One of Family Service Center, which was one of the agencies that I was the director at for several years. It was a foster care agency, so I worked in foster care for a long time. I'm a CASA. So these types of things around kids, after school program for homeless kids, I did stuff with that. I mean, kids just really matter to me. And then their parents matter to me, because what I found when I started working with kids is that I could love them all I wanted to, but if they were going home to a bad situation, then everything that I did in that time that they spent with me was not going to be able to stick. So then you start worrying about their families. You talk to those families and those parents, and no parent, when your child is born and you hold them for the first time, you don't say, gosh, I really hope one day I'm super stressed and yell at you a lot and I'm unable to care for your needs. Let's hope that happens. No, what kind of promises do you make to those children? You promise them that you're going to love them and care for them and that you're going to help them be successful in their life. And that's the commitment we make to that next generation. So as a therapist and as a person who cares about kids, I realized that missing piece was families and the parents and what we were doing to them. If they don't have a job, if they're making minimum wage and housing costs are really high and childcare costs are high and we don't have enough space for them to get on a voucher program to get their kids in the right child care center, maybe they're waiting for their food stamps to be approved, or maybe they forgot to turn in that sheet of paper they needed so that they could stay on food stamps. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are complicating for families. All of a sudden, that parent who made all those sweet promises to that little baby is stressed and tired and worried and probably doing some really bad things in the house that are harming their family. So, going back to why I'm here as the Chamber CEO and President, that still matters to me. And I find that in my position at the Chamber, I can step across from holding the kids tightly, and now I'm going to step across and work with their families and work with the community so that there's space for the parents to have the income that they need to be successful, that they have opportunities for growth themselves, that they are going to be able to rise in their career or change jobs, get the education that they need, that they'll be ready for the challenges ahead. And I feel like if that happens, then those kids that are following right behind them are going to be okay too. And so I find that when people ask me, have I changed or the Chamber changed? We've neither one changed. The Chamber has always been working on these issues. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think we've always done a great job about talking about them, but we've always had these positions. And so for me, I feel like I'm just linking them together and continuing on in the same way that I had before. Like I said, just from the other side, working more directly with the adults so that they can take care of those kids. This coming year, we're going to be working on being the best chamber that we can. I worked really hard with staff a few months in to my tenure to define what it means to be a great chamber. Jim Collins has a great book called Good to Great. Y'all know that book? Yep. So we read the Social Services Monograph, which is the little short one-chapter thing that talks specifically about nonprofits and how we can measure our success. It's not always as easy to do that in a nonprofit. So we set some goals for ourselves this year. We're going to be place where you can have connections. That goes a lot for the community connections. We're going to be doing introductions. We're going to continue to do networking. We're going to see where, oh, wow, I was at that meeting and they talked about that same topic. And, you know, do they know each other? Have they already been working together? How can we help convene people around this topic? We're going to be a trusted knowledge center. We want anybody in the community to be able to come to us and ask us questions, and either we may not know the answer, which we're going to be fine in saying we don't know, but we'll help them figure it out. We also want our members to be able to depend on us to be advocating for them and giving them good information when we ask them to advocate with us. The third thing we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be an architect for a better community. And that means that we are going to be providing leadership in different community settings, both for myself and my staff. I'm encouraging them to get involved in different boards, volunteer themselves, making sure that we are part right there on the front lines of making sure our community is great. And then we're going to continue to be the voice of business. And you'll continue to see me, Jim, at the city council meetings talking about whatever that is, parking or things like that, and things as they come up. But we think that's very important too. So much of the time, I feel like what I've realized already is the business community, in some ways, don't always want to step up for themselves. There's somehow, especially when it's a community issue, I'm not quite sure I understand the dynamics behind that, but they'd much rather prefer somebody to represent their thoughts and to be able to do that in a way that collaborates and brings people together. So that's what I find my role is much of the time. And then the last thing we're going to do, which I don't think we can measure this year, but we'll measure it in 5 years, probably 10 years, is the idea of the endurance of ideas. Steve Howard was my predecessor a few predecessors ago, and as many of y'all know, he passed away earlier this year. One of the things I realized after Steve's death was what a strong commitment he made to our community. I had never met Steve, but I heard so much about how wonderful Steve was after his death that it made me realize that impact that he made years and years ago, he'd retired many years ago, but people so easily remembered and thought about that impact that he was making on those endurance of ideas. And so we talked about it as a group, is what does it mean when we take a stand or we have an issue that we're really supporting? Is it that we're going to make an impact now, or that 10 years from now, that shadow of the impact will still be felt? And so we're hoping to have really good decisions now so that in 10 years, that shadow is not a shadow of darkness and sadness, right, as you would think of a shadow, but is really positive impact for the whole community. So that's what we're up to. That's what 2019 looks like for us. We're going to try to stay warm this week. I am from South Carolina, as we mentioned. I do not like what is happening right now. But anyway, so that's what's going on with us. What questions do y'all have for me, if any? Yes?
I wanted to ask whether the Bloomington Chamber has a direct relationship with the U.S. Chamber.
We are members of the U.S. Chamber. We are, as a nuanced part of that answer to that question, every position the U.S. Chamber takes or the Indiana Chamber takes does not mean that we take those positions. We are not the same, or we are not required to take that. We're our own entity. But we do find that having that relationship and connection with both of those individuals, there's a lot of overlap about our interest, but we do not share all of the same interests. Mm-hmm.
In a similar vein, taking an advocacy standpoint on something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure not all 30,000 employees that are represented by the chamber
Yeah.
take the same position, which is natural.
Yep.
How do you manage that situation?
I think our system is one that is very effective. So we do have our Chamber Advocacy Council that I mentioned at the beginning that talks about issues and determines, is this the time to take a position? Is this the time to wait? Do we need more information? Who do we need to hear from? And so they're very wise. It's a wise group. And so we usually let them start that discussion. They represent all sorts of industries and sectors. A lot of them are past presidents of the chamber. They've been around the community a lot. They know who we need to know. So I rely a lot on them and their wisdom. So they usually start the discussion. And like I said, by the time we have several discussions and really start thinking it through, it's gone through several different levels and different conversations. Once the board votes on a position, it's usually unanimous, and there's been lots of opportunity for input. Mm-hmm.
You talked about wanting to make the community more aware of the Chamber of Commerce. What else are you doing to make that happen?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. What she asked, what else was I doing to kind of get the news of the chamber out there? So I'm actually about to start a podcast, which I'm a little nervous about, but I'll tell you all, I'll send it through Lauren and y'all can all become my podcast fans or something. So we're trying to do those types of things where we're doing new ways of communicating. We have a strong social media presence as well. And then I've added surveying our membership to things that we're doing right now as well. So those of you who are members have gotten emails from me multiple times in this last 6 months or so, just saying, hey, I need your opinion about this or this other thing's going on. Let me know how you feel. And those opportunities give us a quick way to get a snapshot for how our members are doing and what they think about a certain position and help inform our advocacy efforts, but also allow me opportunities to have those conversations and follow up with them later to talk more about, maybe how something was resolved or a different situation like that. Leslie, did you have a
I
question?
was just gonna ask, how active do you get in actually going to the State House? Is that part of what you're doing, or do you have members that are doing that? Or?
Yep, so we have, we just did our legislative preview where our representatives came down last Friday and visited with us. We will be going up there in another few weeks to visit as well. Anne is going weekly during the session to be able to stay in communication with them about those bills that we're concerned about or have interest in. And then I'll probably go up a couple of times. I haven't gone yet this session, but I will go up a couple of times as well. Yep. Yep. We do. So she asked if we accept membership from other areas, being the greater Bloomington. If a business has an interest in us, then we have an interest in them. So if they're interested in being part of our community and being part of this collaborative experience of kind of all doing well together, then we would love it if they would want to hang out with us. Yes. I didn't hear that last part.
Of the total community you serve, how many employees are there? You mentioned you have 30,000 employees.
Okay. So she asked basically what percentage of the community, employee-wise, do we represent? I do not know. It's a good question, though. I don't know that. I'll try to find that. That'd be a good part of my presentation, wouldn't it? I can add that.
All right. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for being here with us today. And as is our custom, we make a financial contribution to a charitable organization here in the community for you being here today. And this quarter's recognition is to the Community Kitchen. So we will be sending a contribution in your name and being here and speaking with us today. Thank you again. Next week's program, I'm very interested by this, is presented by Owen Johnson, but his name is David Paul Nord, and he has a historic newspaper collection. And from what Natalie tells me, it is quite expansive, and he's going to have a lot of things on display of historic newspapers from his collection. So that should be very interesting and a lot of historical references. My thought for the week, I try to tie in current events and names that have come through based on recent current events and historical events, but this one is, success is empty if you arrive at the finish line alone. The best reward is to get there surrounded by winners, and that is by Mr. Howard Schultz, who you've probably heard his name a lot recently, the former CEO of Starbucks Corporation. So success is empty if you arrive at the finish line alone. The best reward is to get there surrounded by winners, from Howard Schultz. So, all right, I will invite all of you to stand and join us in the four-way test as we head off into the wink. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Have a great week, everybody.